Story 1. We didn't put that. What I'm about to tell you is something that has no explanation. It's the strangest thing that has ever happened to me or anyone I personally know. I work late hours at a dive bar about 30 minutes from my house. It's not really by choice. It's just how things are when you live out in a more rural area. There are not a ton of jobs close to home, so you take what you can get. The bar itself isn't anything special, but it's steady work, and most nights are pretty uneventful. The night this all happened was no different. My shift had gone by without much happening, and after closing everything up, I got in my car and started the drive home. Most of the way back is nothing but a series of winding back roads. Hardly any traffic, barely any lights, barely any cars, barely anything. Honestly, just long stretches of curves cutting through woods and farmland. It's usually a pretty quiet drive, and honestly, I've always kind of liked it for that reason, like a built-in detox, where I have time to zone out or think about characters I met at the bar and interesting conversations I may have had with them. Not long into the drive, I remember thinking to myself how unusually foggy it was. I've driven those roads more times than I can count. But that night, visibility was worse than I'd seen in a while. I actually had to ease off the gas and take it slower because I could barely see more than a few car lengths ahead. Even flipping on my brights didn't help. It just made the fog glow and reflect back at me, almost like I was driving into a wall of white. It started pissing me off because I knew it would only add time to my trip and I was exhausted. I was about halfway home when I noticed it. Through the fog, maybe a little off to the right side of the road, there was this faint yellow blinking light. At first I figured it was just some kind of roadside marker or maybe a reflector. But as I kept driving, it didn't really get any closer or farther away. It just stayed there, blinking at a steady rhythm, like it was moving right along with me, keeping pace from somewhere deeper in the fog. The whole thing felt a little off. I couldn't tell how far away it actually was. It was like the fog was playing tricks on my depth perception. After about another minute of driving with that blinking light hovering in the exact same place, I started getting this weird feeling in my stomach. I couldn't even explain it to you. Something about it just weirder. I reached down to shift into reverse so I could back up and turn around, but I realized the engine wasn't running. I swear to God it was dead silent. I had no idea how that was even possible. The only way to kill the engine would have been touching the key, but I distinctly remember never doing that. Why the hell would I do that? At that point, my hands were shaking, and my hands never shake. I pour drinks all day. My hands can't shake. As I was desperately trying to start the car, I couldn't help but think that this thing outside my car had something to do with my engine, which, of course, wouldn't start. I tried the ignition again and again. The engine was completely dead. Meanwhile, that blinking yellow light kept burning brighter and brighter and brighter, almost like it was feeding off something. My pulse was racing at that point. I had no idea what the hell was going on, and there was no one around for miles. Not knowing what else to do, I reached for my phone, figuring maybe I could at least get some video of it or call for help. But as soon as I tapped the screen, nothing happened. Completely black. My phone had died. I knew for a fact I still had at least 20%. I had literally checked it back at the bar before I closed up, but now it was as dead as the engine. Before I could do anything else, the light suddenly flared to a blinding brightness like an exploding star. I physically couldn't keep my eyes open. That's how bright it was. I threw my arms up in front of me and kept my eyes shut for 10 seconds at least, feeling the blaze of what was now a gigantic light bulb. And then, just like that, it was gone. Like it had never been there in the first place. The fog was still thick, but there was nothing out there anymore. My heart was still pounding, but I instinctively reached for the ignition one more time. And this time, the engine turned over like normal. I didn't waste another second. I drove the rest of the way home with my eyes glued to the road, as if looking away for even a second would bring that awful light back. But nothing else happened that night. Nothing ever happened again. Actually, I've told this story to just about everyone I know. My family, friends, even a couple regulars at the bar, but no one's had an explanation that sits right with me. And, trust me, I've heard every theory you could think of. Story 2. This happened a couple years back. I'm a long-haul truck driver. I've been doing this for years now, so I've gotten pretty used to the long stretches of nothing. This particular night, I was on my second-to-last delivery of a cross-state loop. My mirrors, always visible, always keeping that same strange gap. He never tried to speed up or pass. when I glanced back before shutting off the engine, I saw that SUV pull in too, parking way off in the far corner of the lot. And I could finally go about my night in peace. But another part of me was deeply unsettled. I had basically confirmed to myself that whoever was driving that car had been following me for some unknown reason. And what's worse, they clearly didn't want me approaching their vehicle. So, their intentions back, finding the lot again would be next to impossible. They'd have to search blindly in the middle of a pitch-black desert. The combination of my exhaustion and newfound comfort made falling asleep really easy. If I had to guess, I'd say I fell asleep that night in a matter of minutes. I should probably mention that I'm a really light sleeper. I couldn't make out any faces, but it was clear as day what they were doing. I didn't have any weapon on me. I usually don't, but if it came down to it, I was fully prepared to defend my rig and load. That's my life. As I watched, one of the guys reached into a small bag and pulled out what looked like a pair of bolt cutters. That was it. Without even thinking, I slammed my palm down on the horn, sending the truck's air horn blaring. Their reaction was instant. Both men jumped like they'd been hit with a lightning bolt, and they scrambled back towards the roadside brush. Not even 10 seconds later, I saw headlights appear out of nowhere. It was that same SUV from earlier, this time roaring back into view with its lights still off, before whipping around and disappearing into the night again. I never even had time to step out of my cab before the whole thing was over. After things calmed down a bit, I called the police. Honestly, I was mostly just calling to report the incident and get it on record, but they insisted I stay put until a unit could get there to check things out. It took a while, but eventually 2 officers showed up and helped me inspect the truck. Sure enough, there were fresh pry marks along one of the lower lock arms on the back of my trailer, right where those guys had been met. Criminal speeds, but I do enjoy experiencing the full capabilities of German engineering from time to time. This night was one of those times. I was full on joyriding, cruising along the highway without a care in the world. Stereo turned off and passenger seat empty. My ears were focused not on music, but on 2 other things. The beautiful sounds of my car and the whip of the air around my face. Driving like this is one of the only things that makes me feel truly free. I'm not sure what came over me, but at one point I had this insatiable urge to pull off the highway and cut up some back roads where I could really appreciate the car's handling. It's like when you get a really strong urge to do something, and you don't really know why. But you do know that you won't be able to sleep at night if you don't satisfy it. That's exactly what it was like. So, I did exactly that. I pulled off at the next exit and started cutting through a network of back roads, weaving through whatever neighborhood I had landed in. The roads were narrow and filled with tight bends, exactly the kind of driving I was looking for. I let the car open up a bit, taking the turns with just enough speed to feel the tires grip and release. The streets were completely deserted. It was just me, the car, and the road. That is until I spotted a flicker of light in the road up ahead and slammed on the brakes just in time to barely avoid smashing into it. Once I came to a stop, I finally got a clear look at what I had almost hit. It was a shopping cart just sitting there in the middle of the road like someone had wheeled it out and left it. The way my headlights bounced off the metal bars must have been what caught my eye and made it look a lot more sudden and dramatic than it really was. Still, it completely threw me off. I mean, it's not exactly normal to find a random shopping cart sitting dead center in the middle of the back road at close to midnight. Against my better judgment, I put the car in park, turned on my hazards, and stepped out to take a closer look. I probably should have just kept driving, but my curiosity got the better of me. The whole thing just felt so random and out of place that I had this weird need to make sense of it. The night air hit me right away. Warm, but a little buggy, and the only sound was my cooling engine making the classic BMW ticking sound. I walked up to the cart, unsure of what I'd find inside. Groceries, maybe? No, that was ridiculous. I internally scolded myself for letting such a dumb thought even enter my brain. I peered inside the cart and realized it was completely empty. Just an ordinary metal shopping cart sitting in the middle of the road. I stood there for a few seconds, but when it became clear there was nothing unusual about the cart itself, I turned to head back toward my car. That's when I saw out of the corner of my eye, two dark figures suddenly broke out from the farmland beside the road. They were sprinting full speed, coming straight toward me. It took my brain a second to even process what I was seeing, but in that moment, it was life or death. My options were either act or die. I bolted back to my car and basically punched the start button. The car came to life as those figures made it to my car window. One of them stopped a few feet from my car, but the other one sprinted directly into my passenger side door, coming to a halt with a deafening thump. He didn't even flinch. It was as if my car were invisible. That's how fast he had been running. He didn't even brace himself for the impact. The two of us locked eyes, and all the confidence I just had was instantly gone. I was frozen. He stared at me with two beady, bloodshot eyes. His clothes were torn like he'd been running through thick brush or barbed wire, and his hair was messy and wet. His face was smeared with something dark, dirt or blood,